The film Juno, directed by Jason Reitman, uses film techniques to convey deeper meaning, which gives the film more depth and gives the audience something to leave with. The film follows the main character Juno as she finds out she is pregnant by her best friend. She decides to give up the baby for adoption to a couple, Mark and Vanessa, who can't have children of their own. The scene where she admits to her father and stepmother that she is pregnant reveals an important part of her character. Her father, Mac, tells her that he thought she wasn't the kind of person who does this. She replies that she doesn't really know who she is. This line is important because it shows that Juno hasn't fully figured out who she is yet. This plays into the genre of coming of age, where the young main character who is still in high school still needs to figure out who they are and has some growing up to do. This line sets the stage for her to grow up during the course of the story. The film uses this idea and conveys it to the audience through familiar image. In film, a familiar image is a symbol that keeps occurring to convey an overall theme. The film Juno uses color as familiar image to represent immaturity and the lack of color to represent maturity. The first example we see of this is with Juno's clothes. In the beginning of the film, Juno is wearing a red hoodie with the hood up. This is a symbolic reference to the character Little Red Riding Hood, who is a young girl who is naive in her story. While Juno isn't naive in terms of her decisions with her unborn child, she is still young and at that stage where she hasn't figured things out yet. The red hood signifies that she is still a child, like Little Red Riding Hood. Familiar image of color also comes in the form of blue slushies, which her and her friend drink throughout the film. The color red is seen and mentioned during other parts of the film as well. When talking to Mark, Juno mentions that her stepmother, Bren, doesn't allow her to eat red M&Ms anymore because of her pregnancy. Later in this scene, Mark shows her a horror movie where the color red is extremely prominent, through blood and gore special effects. The denial of red candy is symbolic to her now moving on from her child stage in the film. In the end, Mark leaves his wife and decides not to become a father. His decision is seen as immature, since he is a married adult who is still trying to live in the past. The fact that he watches a film with red being such a prominent color reflects his immaturity. Red is again used when Juno puts on red lipstick and drives to see Mark, a choice seen as immature since people have told her she shouldn't be seeing him alone. The opposite of this is using a lack of color to represent maturity. Vanessa and Mark's house is very monotone, with lots of whites, beiges, and grays. These are shots from the film showing different parts of their house. This dichotomy shows the barrier between maturity and immaturity that Juno is crossing, and the considered end goal for her would be to be seen in the film without all the reds, blues, oranges, and other vibrant colors. This would indicate that she has crossed the threshold and has grown up. While Juno is a coming-of-age story, it breaks away from traditional genre expectations. Usually in coming-of-age movies, there is a specific moment when things come together and the characters figure their life out, or come of age. This is called Bildungsroman, where the characters reach their final adult form. This film does have this moment, specifically a cathartic moment, where the character goes through emotional release. This happens when Juno drives back crying and realizing that she still wants to give her baby to Vanessa. In this scene, she writes Vanessa a note in red. The fact that the note is written in this color signifies that even though she has made an adult decision and gone through the moment where she figures everything out, she is still her own age and still not totally mature. She hasn't completely crossed the barrier. This breaks the trope of a coming-of-age movie, since she does not totally break through this barrier of immaturity. This note is hung up in the baby's nursery at the end of the film, continuing the idea that even though Juno showed extreme maturity for her age, she is still a young teenager in high school. This idea is pushed again through familiar image in the end of the film. After her cathartic moment, Juno talks with her father about love and whether two people can love each other for their whole lives. During this scene, Juno is again wearing her red hoodie, symbolizing her immature state as she navigates this journey. The last piece of familiar image is with her best friend and love interest Polly Bleecker, who is also the father of her child. He is known for his consumption of orange Tic Tacs. This color again symbolizes immaturity. In the end of the film, Juno fills his mailbox with orange Tic Tacs as a gesture to apologize to him. The fact that this is at the end of the film, after she decides to stick with the plan to give the baby to Vanessa, and after she has the conversation with her father, shows that even though she has grown and has matured throughout the film, she hasn't grown up, and does not suddenly have the knowledge and maturity that gets her through life. This again breaks the traditional trope of a coming-of-age film by not having its main character rapidly progress towards adulthood by the end of the story. For me as an audience member, this film does a great job of bringing fresh takes to a genre. By disregarding what has been done before, Reitman has created a film that is more realistic to the teenage experience. No one just becomes an adult overnight. and there isn't a singular defining moment that gives teenagers the knowledge to figure out their entire life. The film Juno shows a more believable teenage experience and helps the film stand out in the genre.